I'm Becky Simms, and this is SEO in 2024.
Becky, what's your number one SEO tip for 2024?
So it is to focus on the tracking the metrics that matter. So making sure that you are focusing on the right metrics that really prove whether your strategy is moving the needle. But to do that, you need to know what moving the needle means. So I'm sure we're going to unpack it more now.
Absolutely. Okay, so what are the metrics that matter then? Are they the same for different clients, different businesses, or do you have to pick your own metrics?
Great question. And sadly, this is homework for everybody. They are bespoke to your business. So whenever I talk to clients about this, I do always caveat that this does mean homework. It's I can't just lift what we've done for someone else and bring it over. The people that do the work on this, though, is your customers. So it's your job to listen to your customers, to understand them, to find out how you can talk to your customers, where you can get the feedback. But actually, if you listen really well, you can start to understand from your customers the journey that they go on when they're trying to buy your product or inquire about your service. This works B2B as well as B2C. And if you start to understand the journey they go on, you start to see there's little milestones, little mini things, there's jobs to be done that they have to do throughout the process. And then as you start to uncover what they are, they're the things that you need to be tracking. I always talk about ROI being it's a lagging indicator. It's we either hit the ROI or we didn't. We either hit the target or we didn't. But it doesn't tell you how to fix anything. The leading indicators, did they download something? Did they watch the video? Did they share with a friend? All those kind of more micro moments are all the leading indicators that tell you, well, actually, if we've got enough people doing this, we know eventually, and you can statistically work that out in your business for how many of these things happen does it take to get us to a conversion. And then you start to see the leading indicators as to whether you're likely to hit ROI or you're likely to hit the target that you're trying to achieve. So to me, they're the metrics that really matter because they're the dials that we've got more control over, we can do something about.
Are our clients actually interested in moments that matter in these micro metrics, or are they still primarily focused on ROI?
I think when they start understanding it better as to why, then yes, they are really interested. If you can start to show and model out, well, actually, if we start to understand that if we've got enough of these things happening, that it does result in the sale or the conversion that we're looking for, then it starts to kind of flip their minds to go, I see, I get it. But you have to take the business on the journey because normally the marketing person gets it quite quickly. But obviously the marketing person often has someone that's got these lovely vanity metrics and the big numbers and doesn't really care about the smaller things. That's a sweeping generalization there. So definitely not true of everyone, but you can often find that be the case. So it's actually how do we make sure that the business understands why these metrics matter and why. I think there was a story recently. We won a client, and when I understood from the client why they'd switched agencies, they said it was because the agency wasn't performing. The previous agency wasn't performing. We started to dig into the strategy and what we were going to be doing. And we couldn't really pick any holes in it. This previous agency, I felt quite sad for them because I thought, well, they've been doing a really good job. And as I started to understand it more and get to understand the client more, what actually happened was the client had their benchmark of what good metrics looked like in their mind. And they were gunning towards ROI and they wanted to see return for what they were spending on SEO. But actually what the agency had been doing was all kind of upper funnel, driving awareness that would have been part of assisting in a lot of conversions. Like they were doing a really great job. But they hadn't articulated that right and they hadn't got the client bought into those being the metrics to be following, the kind of actions that would lead to the conversion. And they lost the client over it. And if you're in-house, that could be a job that you might lose over it. So it's trying to get the business to understand what metrics really matter and what these smaller things that lead to the big thing are, and focusing on those because they're the things you can optimize as well. And we all love to optimize in SEO, don't we?
Absolutely. And do you have any preferred analytics package that track your preferred metrics? And also, what is your way of presenting those metrics to your client?
Oh, good question. So from a tracking perspective, we sadly are still finding our feet as everybody is with the lovely GA4. It is working for us. But we are predominantly using GA4 just because it's what most of our clients are using. We pull everything into our own dashboards and we organise our dashboards and our reporting against the customer funnel. And I think the way we present it is around what the customer journey looks like. So to go on a journey to work out what the metrics that matter are is to go on a journey around your customer journey. So we would start from that early piece of understanding audience, working out where they're spending time, looking at then the channels that have come up from that research to see where the opportunity lies, where the volume is, what kind of numbers start to kind of predict what we think the opportunity might look like, and how the channels might play nicely together, thinking about passing the customer through the funnel. But we would then lay that out as the customer journey, but with the tracking metrics aligned with it, so that what we're starting to see is that the customers told us where we should be. The customers also told us what we should be saying, because we understand what it is that they're looking for at each piece. And we've also seen that the customers told us what we should track, because they've told us what they're trying to do throughout the journey. And then that becomes, so you've got a real visual view of what that looks like as a funnel through to conversion. And you see how the channels work together, and you see how the metrics work together to roll up into then the return on investment that we do eventually want to see.
You say the customers told you what you should be saying. Does that mean that you have conversations with a group of customers and you have to actually have that face-to-face, or at least actually screen-to-screen direct conversation with customers? Or can you actually get the data from a package like GA4 to determine what the customer journey is?
So for us, it's a real mixture. So when we're first working with a customer to think about customer journey, we'll start to first of all understand what they already know about their audience. Inadvertently, everyone knows something about their audience, but how statistically relevant it is, how recent it is, because we know audiences change, and how robust it is then the kind of question where we start to see, is there opportunity to strengthen the data and the relevance against that? But we would do it from a mixture of surveys. So it could be behaviourally written surveys that either go out to current customers or might go out to a potential audience. So we might use a third party to help us reach a particular type of audience set, normally with qualifying questions in there. So we make sure that we're getting to the right type of audience that would buy the product or buy the service.
There's not people who are actively using the website. It's not using some pop-up piece of software to add a particular page in the buyer journey.
So it could be, you could do some of that. So it's a mixture is normally where you get the most robust understanding, because obviously if they've already hit the website, then they're already part way through the journey. So actually, if we can also get people that haven't hit the website yet, that maybe haven't bought the product yet, we also start to see when they might identify a need. But it does vary depending on what the client, who the client is and what it is that they're trying to sell and who their audience is. But yeah, I say behaviourally written when it comes to kind of asking the questions, and that's the same if it's a written survey or if you were doing an interview. Until we went on the journey to specialise more in the behavioural science area, and we brought behavioural scientists into our team, I didn't realise how much I biased the questions that I ask. And I think we all do. It's a real art to not bias a question and to really leave it free and open for the person to answer their truthful, honest view. So that's kind of part of it, is making sure that whoever's writing the questions or running the session, if you're doing it as an in-person, be it a round table, be it a one-on-one, the person needs to be really trained and skilled at not priming them to say what you want them to say, but actually really understanding what it is that they're trying to do. And humans are weird as well. Like behavioural science shows us that we don't always do what we say we're going to do. We don't always think before we do things. Like so much of what we do is emotional, that trying to ask the right questions to try and draw out that almost immediate response of what we think someone might do or what they think they might do is really, really important, because then you kind of gather all this data. You've also got search trends and search volume and looking at keywords. That's an amazing voice of the customer, seeing the phrases and the popularity.
I would imagine that even in having conversations directly with users, that's maybe skewed to targeting a certain type of user that's more comfortable with having a conversation with you, and you want to make sure that you get some form of feedback from people that don't want to have a conversation with you. So I'm thinking of maybe videos of user sessions. Is that something you use as part of the research as well?
Definitely. Yep. Definitely. We also use social listening, because it's amazing if you ask someone what they're willing to tell you, or what they might go on to, I was going to call it Twitter, X, or Instagram, and just openly say to a wider audience that they wouldn't necessarily want to say, especially if they know it's the brand themselves that are doing a piece of research. They might feel like, well, no, I don't want to tell you how I feel about your brand. I'll go and tell the rest of the world on social media. So social listening is another really good tool for starting to understand pain points and the ways that people, sentiment analysis, a lot of the, there's some really good AI tools out there now that will take large data sets and will give you data around what the kind of underlying tone of those messages and posts are without having to read every single one of them, but really starting to pull out things that maybe are repeated regularly and really starting to get a feel for what the mood about a particular customer is or around a particular topic, what they might be talking about on social. So yeah, we use many, many different methods to pull all of that data in. And I think it's down to the client as to what they're comfortable with, what they've got access to do, what they've got budget to do. Because obviously all of these things either cost time if you're doing it in-house or cost money if you're working with an agency or a third party to help gather it. So it's trying to work out where your quickest win and best win's going to be if you can't do everything at once, but where's going to give you the most insight so that you can start to understand those pain points of your customers and not just pain points, but go points, like things that drive them to move quicker. Like, what is it? I always say, like, it's one thing to know what stops someone progressing, but also to know what pushes them to progress quicker in a journey. And is there anything we can do around that in how we create our content or the type of content we create? It's also, not just thinking about what we say, but the format that we say it. So really trying to understand for your audience, do they want this in video and they want it on TikTok more so than they want it as old school written articles on the website? Like how do they want to digest the information that we as a brand have got to tell them to help them in the process of buying our product or service?
So you touched upon budget. If a client says to you, look, we haven't got any budget for you to do customer journey research, and we're comfortable. We know what the customer journey is. So we just want you to do your SEO stuff, and that way you can spend all of your budget just doing that. Would you be comfortable taking on a client like that? Or would you prefer to insist to say, look, we want to do our own research because that way we'll optimize what we end up doing in the future?
I feel like a politician because I keep saying it depends, but I guess it does depend. If it was a client in an area that we were specialists enough that we felt that we understood, like for us, it's always coming back to, are we going to be able to add enough value? If we can see that there's loads of SEO opportunity and it's super obvious and clear gaps that they've got missing and ways that we can optimize that, and we know we can make an impact, yes, we're going to move ahead and do that. And those metrics that matter ahead of the purchase metrics or the inquiry metrics, if that's the final conversion, we can probably, you can always guess some of them. But if we felt that we didn't know enough and that actually maybe their strategy was quite advanced and they're looking for micro increases that might, at the scale that they're at, might make big differences, but they really need someone that's going to understand the detail of what they're missing out on because they've done the basics, then you need to do that research. You need to be able to start to understand and prioritize and see how the channels are going to work together, I think is one of my biggest bugbears is that we end up in marketing working in these little silos and we go, oh, well, I'm SEO and I've got these keywords I'm going to optimize. And I know my customer probably searches for these because there's search volume, so it's lovely. But they haven't really thought about, well, and what next? So I might get to number one or a top position and I might start to drive thousands of visits for this keyword. But if it's not the final buying keyword, I'm never going to see them buy unless I've thought about what next and how my other channels might help me to drive this user through to conversion. And if you're not thinking about that, then your work's kind of almost a bit pointless because you probably lose loads of those people that then don't go on to convert because no one held their hand through the process. So if we're not thinking about the metrics to measure that and also how to work with our colleagues in paid or email or whoever it might be to be able to get to that conversion, then we've kind of wasted our efforts.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time on metrics that matter in 2024?
I think it's getting obsessed with the big metrics. So if they're just running at a metric that feels impossible, stop going for that and break it down to something smaller that's more achievable, that will eventually roll up into that bigger metric. But don't get distracted.
And you've used the phrase metrics that matter a lot. So I have to ask you a final follow-up question. What are the metrics that don't matter?
Oh, bounce rate. We're all done with bounce rate, aren't we? Oh, again, it is personalised though. to your business, because there are certain metrics that someone would go, but that's really important to me because I've only got a single page that people need to land on, and therefore bounce rate isn't a thing, or it is a thing for me. It's I do try and steer people away from bounce rate. I don't mind about that. It's more, let's understand more about what we expect the user to do, what we think they want us to do. That's where, and ideally they tell us that.
Becky Simms is founder and CEO at Reflect Digital. You can find her over at reflectdigital.co.uk. Becky, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2024.
Thank you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2024, the book, over at seoin2024.com.